There are perfumes that smell good, and then there are perfumes that quietly become part of your life until one day you realize they are just a scent anymore. They're memory. If you stay with me until the end of this video, I want to explain why these weren't just worn, they were passed down, and why, even after decades and thousands of new releases, women never really forgot them. This isn't my collection. These bottles belong to my wife. And what makes that important is that she didn't discover them because of hype or nostalgia trends. She didn't go searching for something vintage. She grew up around them. Charlie was part of her childhood long before she ever made a conscious choice about perfume. It was on her mom, it was on her aunties, it lingered in rooms during normal afternoons and ordinary family gatherings. No one presented it as something iconic. No one explained it. It was just there. And sometimes the things that are simply there, steady, consistent, and familiar, shape us more than the things that arrive loudly. Now, when she sprays it, she doesn't analyze it. She doesn't ask whether it's still relevant or how it compares to modern perfumes. She remembers being young. She remembers home. She remembers the women who quietly defined what femininity looked like for her before she even had the language to describe it. That's when I started to understand something. When a fragrance becomes tied to childhood, it stops being optional. It becomes part of identity. And what a lot of people don't realize is that Charlie was never just one perfume. This is Charlie Gold. This is Charlie Blue, Charlie Red, Charlie White, and Charlie Silver. Each one slightly different, each one carrying its own tone. And that matters because women didn't just wear Charlie as a single idea, they wore the one that felt like them. Some gravitated toward the warmth and richness of gold. Some felt at home in the airy softness of white. Some preferred the calmness and cleanness of blue. Some connected with the slightly bolder, more expressive feel of red. Others found something modern and understated in silver. See, they weren't chasing statements, they were choosing familiarity. That's one of the reasons they stayed. They didn't try to turn women into something else. They didn't demand attention. They fit into real lives. And real lives are built on ordinary days. These bottles live on vanities. They traveled in handbags. They were worn to work, to errands, to school events, to family dinners. They weren't reserved for special occasions. They were part of the rhythm of life. And rhythm, over time, becomes memory. Today, it's easy to reduce fragrances like this to labels. I mean, old, simple, cheap, but something doesn't last across generations unless it meant something real. Trends fade quickly, hype fades even faster, identity doesn't. Charlie attached itself to identity, not because it was loud, not because it was groundbreaking, but because it was present. And presence, when repeated over years, becomes powerful in a way marketing can't manufacture. There was a moment that really made this clear to me. One day, before we left the house, my wife casually reached for Charlie Gold. It wasn't a special day. Nothing dramatic was happening. She sprayed it, and then she paused, just for a second, not in a theatrical way, not emotional, just still. And I realized she wasn't reacting to the scent itself. She was remembering something. That's when it clicked. We talk about fragrances like they're about performance, projection, longevity, compliments. But for many women, fragrance is about continuity. It's about staying connected to who they were and who shaped them. That's why these five bottles are still here, not as decoration, not as nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia, but as something that still belongs in her collection. They connect yesterday to today. You don't compare something like that to whatever launched this year. You recognize it, and recognition is stronger than novelty. That's why women never forgot Charlie, not because it dominated, but because it stayed. And this is just the beginning. In the next videos, I'm going to go through each one: Charlie Gold, Charlie Blue, Red, White, and Silver, one by one. Not to tear them apart, not to create artificial rankings, but to understand the different expressions of womanhood they represented and which one still feels timeless today. If you appreciate fragrance content that goes deeper than hype, that talks about meaning instead of just notes, then subscribe to the Millennial Fragrant. Because here, we don't just talk about how fragrances smell, talk about why they last. And if any of these bottles were ever part of your life, even quietly, even in the background, you already understand why women never forgot them.